Welcome back to our channel. This is Annie with Family Homesteading in West Texas. We grow, cook, and preserve most of our food from scratch. Good afternoon, friends. Today I wanted to take you along on our onion growing season that we have had so far. We planted onions fairly early and they did very good. So I was going to take you along to show you how we grew them all the way to when we harvest them and how we store them. We have stored onions before, but not as much as we have this year. So we will see how that will go, and stay tuned till the end. We're also going to show you how we're extending our onion growing season so that we don't have to store our onions all year to have fresh onions all year, that we can actually extend our growing season. I don't know if this would work for all the areas, like where you have longer days or shorter summers, but it does work for our area, so stay tuned. We started planting our onions in January, and we ordered starts from Dixondale Farms. We only used compost for fertilizer, and yes, we did use a muffin pan for spacing. So around January 20th, all our starts are in the ground. The first part of the onion growing season is basically watering and keeping them free from weeds. We later put up some shade for the onions, and I think it helped a lot for them not to bolt as fast. The hard work begins when they're starting to fall over. It's time for harvest when you see that. We dig them out of the ground, try to get the dirt off as good as we can. The varieties I planted this year were Legions, Texas Early Whites, and another one that I don't remember what it was, but the Legions did the best in size, although Texas Early Whites weren't much behind the Legions. It is important to keep your onions fairly wet since they're very shallow rooted and they don't have deep roots, so we need to water them quite frequently. So as you see, we had a lot of onions to dig up and to haul them to the house. But the little boys are always so glad to help with the hauling. We put them on a rack to dry in a shady, ventilated area, and we let them dry for about a week. And yes, it is a lot of work to put all the onions up so that they can dry properly. The biggest onions were about 5 inches in diameter, and they weigh about 15 ounces. We didn't hang all the onions to dry. We cut off some of the greens and used up the onions right away, and also the greens. I'm also storing some of the greens of the onions. I was cutting them up and then putting them in a dehydrator. I'm also bagging some of these up to put in the freezer. After they were dry, I put them in a jar, and I have this little vacuum sealer for a jar. I sealed them, and then they're shelf stable. It is so neat to have things on the shelf instead of in the freezer or fridge when you need the freezer and fridge space for something else. I'm also dicing up some of the onions, and I'm also dehydrating them. I can make onion powder from that or just use it in different dishes. I'm putting my dehydrator on 140, I believe, for the onions, and it takes about 8-ish hours till they're dry. I'm also putting some diced onion into small bags to freeze. Okay, so we have so many onions, and now we need a way to store them, and I will show you how we did most of our onions. We did not braid a lot of them. That was a lot of work to braid them. So we did string them. You kind of just make a loop and tie the first one on there. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then from there, you just go and you leave the onion. You leave about 4 to 6 inches of the green of the onion, and then you use that to make like 1 or 2 loops around the string, and it'll stay there. And then you just go up like that. And you can also use cotton string for this. That would probably be more ideal than this. And I'm always finding this spot that looks empty. Like if you look at this bundle, you see that we probably need one here now. So I'm, oops, getting one and just make a double loop, and then they stay. Okay, so when I'm done, when I have the amount of onions on there that I want, I'm just tying a knot on the top here. And this is a 2-person job, but this is how some of our bundles look. I'll show you some of the other ones and where we hung them up for storage. So we have in our garage, we have like a couple like this, and what we did is up in here in the very top is where we hung our onions. And I've never done this before, but I will just check on them every so often and see how they will store. If they get soft, then I will just put them in the freezer. And I know ideally people talk about braiding onions a lot, and we did try that. This is an onion braid, but honestly, I just wasn't good at it, and it was just a lot of work. It took a lot longer than these stringing that we did. We stringed a lot of onions, and we're really hoping that this will store them very well. So far, they all look very good, and we have stored them for at least a month. Okay, so now that I've shown you what we did with our onions that we have grown so far, I also wanted to share with you that we have not only had that one harvest of onions, but we also planted a second planting. And we planted that one in April, around April 20th. And I know I'm a rule breaker all the time when it comes to gardening, and it's the same thing now. I know people say that you can't grow long and intermediate day onions in West Texas. Our days don't get long enough. But I thought I was just going to experiment, and I did plant them, and I got a good deal on the starts since it was so late in the season. They were half price. So that is a good deal. And so I put them in the ground, and I just thought I was going to see what it would do. It's not like a lot of money that I invested into it. And I planted them, as you see, under shade, maybe 50% shade cloth, I would say. And I planted them there, and I just watered them regularly. I didn't use any fertilizer. But I'm going to show you a little clip to show you that you can actually grow intermediate day and long day onions in West Texas. And that extends our growing season of onions, I think, about 2 months. Because I think it's about 2 months ago when we've harvested our first onions. So 2 months later now, we have another onion harvest. And that means we don't need to store our onions as long. So these onions that we're going to harvest in the next week or two now, they won't need to store as long in order for us to have fresh onions till next spring. Okay, as you see, the structure there is where the onions are growing under. There's cucumbers on the side climbing up the trellis there. And I'm going to show you the size of these onions. Okay, this one here that's still standing tall, that's a long day onion. And look at the size of the bulb. It is huge. The red ones are not as big, but then this side, these are the intermediate day, and most of them, about 50% of them, have fallen over. That means it's time for harvest. Same thing here. The white ones aren't quite as big. There's also some red ones down the row there that aren't as big as the yellow ones are. I ordered sampler packs, so I'm not sure of the variety, but I know that these are this size intermediate day and then long day, and you can grow them in West Texas. All right, friends, that's going to be all I have for today. If you liked our content, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, like our videos, share them. That helps us out on the homestead. Until next time, bye.